Hello students, I am Dr. Rajaram Dhok from Savitribai Phule Pune University affiliated Agricultural Development Trust Shardabai Pawar Mahila College Shardanagar Baramati. Let's start. Ionic Solids Lecture 2 Crystal Lattice. We see the formation of ionic solids. So ionic solids are formed by a process in which the gaseous ions that are far apart at the higher temperature are condensed, and by condensation they are attached with each other in orderly three-dimensional array in the ionic crystalline solids. Means that ionic solids are the substances that formed at the lower temperature by the condensation of ion pair molecules. In the gaseous state, positive and negative ions are brought together and forms a crystal. At that time, certain amount of energy is required for this, and that energy is called as crystal energy or lattice energy. So we see in detail about the crystal or crystal lattice. So the crystalline solids have a definite and regular arrangement of atoms, ions, or molecules in three-dimensional space. So such type of crystalline lattice, they have definite and ordered arrangement of the constituents, and such type of constituents extend over a large substance, over a large distance in that crystal, and that is called as crystal lattice. Means there is cation, anion, they are arranged with each other alternatively. So cations are surrounded by anions, anions are surrounded by cations, again cations are surrounded by anion, and these processes are carried out in all the three dimensions at infinite directions or at infinite space, and such type of arrangement that is called as crystal lattice. The position of atoms, ions or molecules in a crystal relative to one another in space are usually designated by points, and such a representation is also called as space lattice. Crystal possesses crystal lattice. The idea of lattice is developed from the internal regularity of that crystal structure. So you see here, we see the different types of crystals. So these are the first ion and second ion in one directions. So we say the along the x-axis, and here these two ions when connected with each other, then that is called as one dimensional lattice. Now we see this B structure which is shown here. So these 1 and 2 ions along the x-axis, then along the B means along the y-axis, these some ions are attached with each other. So in this B structure, here along the x-axis and along the y-axis, that ions are attached. So such type of lattice that is called as two-dimensional lattice. Then three-dimensional lattice. In that three-dimensional lattice, the ions are attached or they are connected along the x, y and z axis. That is called a three-dimensional lattice. So you see the structure along the x-axis, y-axis and z-axis that ions are attached with each other, and in that case such type of lattice that is called a three-dimensional lattice. So when we see any lattice, one-dimensional, two-dimensional and three-dimensional lattice, then in that one of the basic thing, when ions attach with each other, then it forms a one part, it forms one shell, and that is called as unit shell. Now we see this unit shell. You see here along the x-axis two ions are attached, along the y-axis two ions are attached, and when that two ions are attached in one layer, then that four ions attach with each other and it forms a one shell, and that is called as unit shell. So depending upon the attachment of ions in the different directions or in the x-axis, y-axis and z-axis, such type of unit shells are classified into different types. So we see what is mean by unit shell and then different types of unit shells. So when similar points are connected by set of parallel lines, which is shown in the diagram, just we have seen that diagram. In that diagram here, the similar points are connected along the x-axis and y-axis, then that is called as unit shell. So these type of similar points are connected by a set of parallel lines, then that is we say the symmetrical units are obtained. So these points may be connected by a set of parallel lines along with three-dimensional structure or along the three dimensions, along the three coordinate axes, then it gives a space lattice. So such type of space lattice can be divided into a large number of small symmetrical unit shells, and such type of small shells that is called as unit shells. So this unit shell is the smallest building unit of crystal. This unit shell is smallest part of that crystal, or unit shell is the smallest replacing unit in space lattice, which when repeated over and over again and again in all the three dimensions, then that is called as crystal lattice. So in crystal lattice, smallest part, that is we say the unit shells. So crystal may be considered to consist of infinite number of unit shells. Means in that crystal, large or infinite number of unit shells present, and such type of unit shells are essential features of the crystals. So we see the different shapes of this unit shell. So see this A, B, C and D diagram. So here unit shell A, B and C, this is of one type. In this, here each contains only a single point. Here you see that one ion, second ion, third ion, fourth ions, they are attached with each other and it forms a single point, means one lattice point is associated with each shell. In the second also, directions which attach the points are different, but also these four ions are attached. In that also directions are different, but only four ions are attached at every corners. Now in this case, you see in case of this fourth diagram or D diagram, here the unit shells or one of the ions are at the center and other ions are at the corners of this cube. And so here this unit shell that is called as body centered unit cube. So in this way, here these four unit cubes or unit shells are different shapes. Out of that, A, B and C is of same type and D is of different types. Now we see the types of unit shell. So on the basis of shape of that unit shells or different ions connected and forms that particular shape, that unit shells are classified into three types. And these three types are: one is simple cube. In that simple cube, the atoms are placed at each corners of cube. Then second type is a body centered cube. In this body centered cube, the atoms are placed at each corners of that cube, and also one atom is placed at center of that cube, and so that is called as body centered cube. Then third type is face centered cube. In this face centered cube unit shell, there is an atom at each corner and one is at the center of each face of the cube. So such type of structure, that is the face centered cube. So we see the shape of that different types of unit shells. You see this diagram. In this first diagram, here at every corner of the cube there is ion, and so this is called a simple cubic unit shell. In this second diagram, at every corner of the cube there is one ion, and at center there is also ion. So this is called as body centered cubic unit shell. So from this word we can explain the meaning. At the center of the body of that cube there is one ion, and so that is body centered cubic unit shell. Then third type, face centered cubic unit shell. In face centered cubic unit shell, one ion is at the every corner of that cube and other ions are at center of every face of that cube. So this is one face, then upper face, left side face, back side face, front side face, bottom side face. So these are the different faces. So at the every face there is one ion, and at every corner of the cube there is ion. So that is called as FCC unit shell. So these are the three types of unit shells. So these unit shells in hexagonal close pack is not a simple as just we have seen the three diagram, that is the cubic unit shells. So in hexagonal there is also ions are attached with each other, but its shape obtained, structure obtained is in hexagonal shape. So unit shell in three-dimensional lattice is characterized by the lengths along the A, B and C and the angles alpha, beta and gamma between the pairs of edges, that is B and C, A and B, and like that as shown in this diagram. You see here that A, B and C, these are the different lengths of that cube, and there is angle alpha, beta and gamma, and depending upon that the shape is responsible. So unit shell parameters defines the axial directions in a crystal lattice. So this figure 3.5 shows a unit shell in three-dimensional lattice, and in that here that is not a cubical structure. Length of all the corners or edges is not same. So such type of structure is observed in hexagonal close pack structure or hexagonal close pack unit shell. Now we learn about the close packing. So from this word close packing, we can explain that the different ions when attached with each other, then they are closely attached with each other, and such type of packing in the crystal lattice, that is called as close packing. So in crystal, the atoms or ions are arranged in a regular way in three-dimensional space. This arrangement has maximum energy, and hence such type of arrangement is maximum stable arrangement. So for the maximum stability of the atoms, ions that must be surrounded by the maximum number of neighbors, means that ions are close with each other. The maximum number of contacts each constituents atoms or ions of that crystal must be packed as closely as possible. So maximum close packing is when possible, then such type of structure is the ideal structure or packed structure. So such arrangement of maximum number of ions or atoms into a small space, that is called as close packing. So you see here one diagram of close packing is shown. So this is the first ion. In the one line, that ion is surrounded with second. That second is surrounded with third. Third is surrounded with fourth. So they are touch with each other. Now this one line ions, when attached by the other ions, then in the other line, the ions are packed in between these two ions. Again, this second ions from the second line is packed with this in between these two ions. So in this way, this line is continued. Again, in the third line, fourth line, fifth line, the same concept, same pattern is maintained, and all the ions can be maximum filled with each other. So in the close packing, 74% space is filled or space is occupied. And in between that ions, there is some space that is called as void or holes. So in the close packed arrangement, each sphere is in contact with maximum possible number of nearest neighbors, and that is called as coordination number of that sphere. Means one central ion is surrounded by how many other ions? That is the coordination number. So when one central ion is surrounded by 6 oppositely charged ions, then the coordination number of that central ion is 6. So in the close packed arrangement, the spheres occupy 74% total space and remaining is the hole or void. The best known example of this type of close packing in nature is honeycomb. So in the honeycomb, that bee forms a hexagonal cells to store maximum honey in a minimum space. So such type of honeycomb is one of the example in the nature, and such type of honey prepares such hexagonal structures and stores maximum honey in that shape. Next point is types of close packing. So close packing, just we have seen when ions are closed with each other, then that is the close packing. And when that ions are attached with each other, then it forms a particular geometrical shape. So at the time of close packing, there is formation of two types of close packing. One is hexagonal close packing, that is called as HCP, and other is cubic close packing, that is called as CCP. Now we see in detail about the HCP and CCP. So we see hexagonal close packing. So if we pack a number of balls or spheres or ions closely together, we will find that they are most likely to line up as shown in figure. So for that purpose, we take this first line. In this first line, these all the ions are attached with each other. So here we seen that at the edges there are always 6 balls or spheres arranged in a shape with one ion, and it forms hexagon around the central ion or central ball. So this type of arrangement that is called as hexagonal close packing. So when these ions in all the lines, all the directions there is arranged, then one ion is surrounded by 6 other ions. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 ions. And when such type of 6 ions attach with each other, then there is formation of a shape. We draw here this shape. We see this is the central ion, and along this central ion 6 ions are attached. So when these 6 ions are attached, then we get this shape, and this shape is hexagonal shape. So such type of hexagonal structure is formed, that is called as HCP. So in this HCP, how that HCP is formed? So in that case, we firstly place the one line. We keep the atoms in one line. After keeping the atoms in one line, that is on the A, we keep the second line, that is the B. So we keep the atoms in second layer on this first layer, and they will drop into the small gaps where atoms in the first layer meets. We see there are 3, and in between that 3, that one other oppositely charged ions are filled here. So we show here also, and that for identification easiness we are shown here separately. Now we can place the third layer on this second layer. So when we keep the third layer on this second layer, then this can be achieved by 2 ways. That in the either case, the atom in the third layer can fit so that they are directly above the first layer, or second, they can go on that they are only partly above the first layer. So these are the 2 possibilities. So when in the first case we place the second layer on the A, and again third layer like A, then usually we build that here after A we place the B, after B we keep like A. So we get the sequence of that layer A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, like that. That is shown in this B figure. So here the third layer is directly above the first, and the fourth layer directly above the second, and continuously so on we can use that sequence. So this AB pattern of these layers gives lattice with a hexagonal unit shell, and therefore that is called as hexagonal close packed structure. So hexagonal close packed structure is formed when we keep the layers like A, then B, again third layer is like A, fourth layer is like B, fifth layer is like E. Like that we continue that AB, we get the HCP structure. Now we see the cubic close packing or CCP. In this CCP, firstly we use the first layer as seen previously. Then we use the second layer like B. Then third layer we place above the gap in the first layer. So we write the sequence A, after that B, then third layer is in between the gap of that second, that is the we see the difference, or that layer is different than the second, so that is the C. So we use the arrangement, that is A B C A B C, like that. We continue that arrangement and we get this structure. In this structure, we use the arrangement in the sequence of ABC ABC, that is continued. So in this case, here it corresponds to the lattice with a face-centered cubic. It corresponds to the shape like face-centered cubic structure. So here FCC structure is formed when there is arrangement of the different layers in the sequence ABC ABC, like that. So such HCP structures are more preferably in this case, that is the ABC ABC.